Hey everybody, Mike with Gamesplay Badly, and today on Session 0, I have Homie and the Dude. That's Tom and Bodie, and they're here to talk about a 5e module they're creating called Sky Zephyrs. As you can imagine, it's all about the sky, meaning airships, and those vehicles that you're going to be piloting, all the rules that you need for them, all the terrain rules, everything, including creatures, some more magic, all sorts of good stuff. So if you're interested in stuff like that, stick around. We also talk about some BTTs and how they're working to integrate with them, and also an app that they have so that way you can create your very own skyship of your own. So that's pretty interesting. I can't wait for you to meet them. That interview starts now. Tom, Bodie, how are you?
What is up? We're doing well, pretty damn well. It's been a wild day today, but we're stoked to be here with you.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you. You know, we've talked back and forth, and you guys have both been contacting me off and on for a year or so, just in support and things like that. Now we have a project to bring on that I'm interested in highlighting, and you have a Kickstarter coming out, and it is something that I think, I don't know why it hasn't been done before. It's probably been done a little bit here and there, but you guys have taken it to the next level. And it's Sky Zephyrs. And why don't you tell me all about this amazing creation of yours?
So Sky Zephyrs is kind of our love song to the ttrpg community. It's something that so it all started with, I created a homebrew world, and it's set in a world of floating islands. Now, I also am not, we chose D&D as our mechanics, our system that we were going to use for this world. And because of that, typically people go with fantasy type settings and things like that. So I followed suit as a new dungeon master and wanted a level of technology, but not too much technology to start bridging into, either modern day or sci-fi or, industrial era or anything like that. Though I ended up more in the industrial era in the end of it, we ended up with a big steampunk, basically like travel system in our world. And actually a lot of our world is steampunk. People have watches and a bunch of different things, and there's animatronics here and there and things like that. But we realized very quickly upon creating what we call Sky Zephyrs, which are airships for everyone else who doesn't say it weirdly like we do. We basically created these beautiful airships, and we're like, this is amazing, but we had no rules in 5e that allowed us to fly them or do anything with them. There's no combat for engaging two airships in the sky. And, I have pirates, I have the Nadian Guild, I have mafia families, I have, all these different people that would definitely attack you in the sky if they came across you. As well as also creatures and things like that you might interact with. So we said we actually left it for a year before we started creating the system, because we were like, oh, that's a reach. And then when Spelljammer came out and there was just nothing there, we were like, okay, it's time. We're like, it's time for us to make the system and do it, because if the guys who have the money can do it, then someone's got to put some love and passion into it, and really care for it. So we just dove in the deep end basically and began creating it. But Sky Zephyrs as a whole essentially is a 5e supplement. It can be used in pretty much any setting or world. And it basically gives you 3-dimensional movement and combat rules, along with aircrew rules, a system to build and customize your very own airships, and then a bunch of extras around that, as well as like our brand new player feats that we're bringing in, loads of items, spells, creatures, and also example Zephyrs to plug and play into your world as well. So if you don't want to build one from scratch, you can actually just take one of the ones that we've already created for you and go about your way, basically.
But if you did want to build one from scratch,
we recommend using the book if you don't have much access to technology and things like that, or a traditional person who likes the paper and pen style. However, if you're someone who plays online or enjoys technology and bring tech into their games, we have a website application that is our Hat D Builder, where you can basically very simply build your airship using our system that's in the book. It just converts it all, does all the maths for you. All you have to do is click the parts that you want your ship to be made out of, and it will spit you out a stat block on the back end. So nice and simple, no maths, no anything more than just choosing what you feel flavor wise is going to make your ship the ship that feels best for you, your players, the rest of the table, whatever it might be in whatever capacity. That's a big part of it as well.
Yeah, and from the standpoint of being able to have air combat, that is so epic. I mean, just the graphical theater of the mind stuff is fantastic. It kind of reminds me, I'm not sure if you ever watched Legends of Korra.
Yes.
And so that's kind of where I imagine things being kind of that. You have some mechanical
100%.
things you don't have. It's not everything. I always fight with that when I'm a DM because I'm more of a traditionalist when it comes to like straight up fantasy. But the airship stuff got me. I was like, you know what? This sounds fantastic. We have to be able to use this because just the imagining all the tactics that are included and all the various new spells and weaponry that you get a chance to use and the monsters that you get to fight. I mean, that's pretty incredible. So how long has this taken you to develop?
Great question.
Well, it's been so. I think
Spelljammer
Spelljammer came out around this time last year, maybe September of last year or something. So it's been nearly a year of just solid work. I mean, we've basically directed all of our attention, all our resources, our entire team, whether it's through marketing, through social media, writing, developing, programming. Everything has been really honed towards this project. So, and then by the way, like we thought, look, we have to lead with a setting and a type of vehicle. We chose airships.
Yeah, because it suited us.
It suited our world. However, we also acknowledge that, look, there's all kinds of vehicles, right? There's spaceships, there's naval vessels, there's land vehicles. I mean, you can just go on. There's submarines, there's mechs, there's all sorts. So and with that in mind, we thought, okay, look, if we can make this for airships, can we also make it for these other types of vehicles? So what we've done within the book is have a conversion chapter that will allow you, if you're playing Spelljammer, or you're playing Eberron, or you're playing Descent into Avernus, or
Ghost of
Saltmarsh, any of those, you can slap this system over the top of it and just make it a lot more dynamic, make it a lot more, we like to use the term swashbuckling combat. So you picture, whatever your crew is flying through, the air or through the sea or whatever. And it's just very, much more engaging.
Cinematic.
Yeah, that's kind of what we went for. So
though it is airships, though it's airships and though that's awesome. And that's what we love it for. We do want it to be, we hope that this becomes the gold standard for vehicles across 5e. We hope for this to be, the staple at people's tables that want to include any sort of vehicle, whether that's, subnautical, space. And, if you want to be, we even talked about how amazing would it be to have a world where, based on our zones, you have, submersive water zones, then a land zone, air zones, and then space zones above that. We were like, wow, what a world that would be to play in, where you can, you take vehicles through all manners of terrains, atmospheres, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it just sung to us, just really sung to us. And that's where we really put our heads to the grindstone, was making sure that it wasn't just air, but, applied to multiple things.
Sure. Well, I mean, a couple of things. One thing, D&D has never really done a great job with ships on the wall. I mean, they've always pretty bland. They give you a speed and that's about it. There are little bits and pieces here and there that you can put together. So, I mean, and I'm actually running an ocean adventure right now with one of my groups, you know who you are. And so that's a whole challenge, right? So try to cobble that stuff together for myself. I mean, and it's difficult as a DM when you start looking at things, you're going, I don't know if I'm doing this right, or is this going to be overpowered? And you don't know until it really starts and people start playing it. So you're basically play testing to your stuff during your adventure, realizing that either you screwed it up or you hit it right on the head,
Yeah.
The other thing that you do add is, again, that XYZ dimension to combat. So you do have air zones and various penalties and benefits for the higher up you get or the lower you go. You have a chart that you roll on for all of that. Why don't you tell me more about that?
So First of all, I want to touch on something you said about playtesting because, we've done in-house playtesting. That's great. We're creative people, but we're not the community. We're not you guys that are listening who have much more wild ideas, I assume, than us basic bitches over here. So more than anything, we are releasing version 1 of this PDF upon the Kickstarter, and then there will be a month of public playtesting where everyone will get to have their say on what they would like it to be more refined, bigger, better, what they would like to see from the system, and get their stamp on it just as much as we've put our stamp on it. And that's such a big part of this is, bringing the community in and you guys knowing that shit, we're not creating this to come away as millionaires. We're creating this so that you guys come away with the best freaking system that is going to work for 10, 20 years to come. And when we update it for 6th edition, probably many more years past that, is kind of the idea. Sorry, let me answer your question. In terms of air zones and stuff, yeah, air zones was a concept that I came up with very early on in our process. We realized that, we use 2-dimensional virtual tabletops like everyone else, unless you happen to have Tailspire or, are, on the development team for Dungeons and Dragons and are playing with their one that they're bringing out. But we play flat VTTs like everyone else. And so we're like, how would there be a way for you to go up and down as well as then on a VTT track it as a flat map? And so we realized if you're in different zones, you could be at different altitudes basically, and each zone can then, realistically within the sky, if you know anything about like air currents and things like that and wind direction, all that kind of stuff, it means that actually that's why hot air balloons fly at different altitudes. That's how they steer themselves based on wind and all that kind of stuff. So we just applied that like science knowledge basically to this. And we're like, okay, so now you can move up and down zones. And that then means that, strategically, like you said, this becomes a chess match and you start going, okay, so I can see that you're a zone or 2 above me, or you're a zone below me, or something like that. So I'm going to need to drop down to give my players the best chance to be able to hit this ship, or to target it, and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, it was a pretty early concept, and actually, it's one that we found works really, really well. It's one of the things that we're very, very proud of.
Super simple.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, like when you think about three-dimensional combat, you think on a 2D space, it kind of makes your head explode a little bit. But
where did we go first? Talk about where we went first as well before our zones.
Oh, we went to Pythagoras' theorem. We thought, well, okay, we could possibly like maybe make a little app. You plug in, your altitude, your distance, your speed, and like start looking at, angles and looking at velocity and all this stuff. We're like, this is too much. It's just going to be too much for folks.
Yeah.
And so we feel like we captured the essence of 3-dimensional combat, but in the simplicity of a 2D space.
Yeah.
And it feels like it works in playtesting. It has worked brilliantly. And to Bodhi's point, like you can really start looking at the game of dogfighting, whether it's 2, airships, 2, vessels on the water, whatever. And it's kind of cool that you can add that level of strategy.
Dogfight strategy. God damn. Strategy and dogfighting. But yeah, and that paired with the momentum system that we created means that, you are very much trying to plan and predict what, the enemies around you, the other Zephyrs are trying to do. It becomes a game of like, can I outwit my dungeon master? Because another element we added was, a great way to do it is at the end of the round, all the Zephyrs move at the same time. So during the 6 seconds, all the players are doing their thing on the ship and doing their thing. And at the end of the round, you get that movement from the Zephyrs. And what that means is if your GM so chooses and your table's happy with it, it's even more awesome if no one tells each other. The players don't tell the GM what they want to do in the movement round, and the GM doesn't say what they want to do in the movement round. And then it happens. And then you're like, oh, okay, now we need to adjust like this. Now we need to adjust like this. It really becomes chess. Like it really becomes strategic chess, basically, which is awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. Again, theater of the mind for me is huge, and just the visuals of midair, ship fight, or not to mention we're right now we're talking about ship versus ship, but I mean you could be fighting dragons, you could be fighting all sorts of other creatures that you've included in the book. as possible adversaries for whatever you're doing, up there. So, beyond just the airship rules, you create a world around this.
Yes, 100%. We've included 4 crews of NPCs. Now we've got a standard like guard set that you could use as, whether it be imperial or state-based military kind of people. We have a mafia crew, we have a pirate crew, we have a vigilante crew. These are, 20 NPCs that you can include in your world and have roaming around it and filling out, along with, we've got a bunch. I think we've got 10 or 15 creatures. I can't remember the exact number, but we've got a bunch of creatures that again come with new mountable actions, as well as also trigger actions that we've invented for this as well. And again, that's all just to allow GMs, one, including vehicles is one thing, but packing out, for example, the sky, which is what we're really doing here at Sky Zephyrs. It's a hard thing to do, to come up with. And you went to the place that I try and avoid like it's an absolute plague, which is dragons. Everyone assumes, everyone goes with sky, it's dragons, it's that kind of thing. And for us, I really wanted to go, you know what? We've got Fizbans. We don't need dragons. That's done. You can choose your dragons. We've chosen creatures that are just a little bit more outlandish, a little bit more wild. And a lot of it, again, when I do my research for this stuff, I base it in real life. I base it in facts. So, for example, for our Ikakwans, which are sky narwhals, essentially, that are a celestial creature, very lucky to see things like that. They have things that actual narwhals have. Narwhals very rarely have 2 tusks, but they do at times. So our Ikakwans have 2 tusks. Their skin is gray on the top, white on the bottom, very similar to narwhals. We take things from real life and we try to incorporate them in these creatures and make them feel that much more real for when your players are either having a combat encounter with them, or, hey, look, it doesn't always have to be combat. If your players want to interact with these creatures and try and tame one, create a mount out of it and ride it around, that's also fully possible, and that's something that's why actually our sections is not called monsters, because we fully believe that not all creatures are monsters. Some are just creatures. So that's why we've got our creatures and mounts chapter in the book.
Sure.
Exactly. We've got some really cool, alternative creatures that aren't typically, there's some that are, we have these little sky bees that, there's different families of bees. There's some of them that are like worker bees that are kind of cute. And then there's killer bees that, kind of protect the queen, and they're badasses. And then there's the actual queen, and she's the badass. But on and on, we have other aspects of, really dangerous creatures that will F you up, and other types of creatures that you're kind of like, wow, I kind of like that one as
pet.
Yeah. Could we figure out a way for that thing to travel with us?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, domesticated bees. Why not?
Exactly. Why not have a domesticated bee or a jellyfish or something? Why not? It makes perfect sense.
Yes. Well, I mean, what you've basically done is you've opened up a completely different plane for people to play with and develop their own content, and whether that be additional sky creatures or places to go, things to see, weapons, spells, you name it. I think you've expanded the ttrpg literally.
Yeah. Dude, I would agree, and we very much hope so. And I think, with all of that, with our whole system, this is a big thing that we talk about as well. GMs, as someone who plays and, you say you run games as well as a GM, so I'm sure you understand that as GMs, we bastardize everything that we see. Everything that we see is something that we turn into our own version of that, our own style. Whether you take a creature stat block and modify it to suit your world, or you take a feature to make it suit your player better, or whatever it might be, we want GMs and players do the same thing with our system and all the extras that come with it. If you need creatures to fill the water, then hey, you can take any of our creatures, adjust them ever so slightly, and they'll work in the water. Same with land, same with, the NPCs, they can be fitted into, you don't want them to have that ability, that's fine, get rid of it, that's all good. Same with the rules. You can use just the air zones. You could use just the momentum. You could use just the how to build your own airship stuff. We don't mind. What we want this to be is a supplement that suits you and your table in the way that is right for you and your table. So if you use one line from the book as something that you plug into your table, amazing. If you use every part of this book, don't get me wrong, that will mean a lot to me. But also, you know, that's entirely up to you. Dial that crunch to exactly how much crunch you want at your table.
So now one of the things that we found interesting, I mentioned off camera, was that you and I are working together with kind of the same person, Tom, over at Tabletop. And actually you're, not to give anything away, but part of your Kickstarter elements that you're showing off is actually your setting or the airships in their VTT. So we've already worked together to get some of your assets into that VTT. He showed me some of the integration and it looks amazing.
That dude, thank you, first of all. And shout out to Tabletop. Tabletop, the awesome creators over there are creating a map system that we've never seen the likes of on a VTT currently. And I've shopped around for VTTs, you know, we've looked around for this Kickstarter and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, we had to pair with our boys Shard because they've been our VTT since day one. But, you know, Tably just brought this map system, this way to go from, you know, your token of an airship in the sky onto the top deck, then, you know, into the sub decks of it. And it blew our mind when they showed us what was possible. And so we were like, yeah, sold. We're there. We're there.
It was like, we had been around the block. So we had gone and we have spoken to most every VTT.
Especially the big ones. They just don't care.
Yeah.
They just don't care.
And we kind of, you know, with Tabletop, we just kind of had a conversation and we said, oh, let's try it. Let's see how it looks. And within 5 minutes, you know, we were saying, holy shit, they've cracked it for us. Like they have represented in a virtual tabletop what we wanted, which is kind of 3D movement on a 2D map, which is sick. Like, and their technology is super easy. I mean, it's very, very clear how to do it. And you're just kind of clicking through different levels of altitude and it's amazing. So we love them.
Yeah. Very, very proud to be joined with those guys and feel like they're gonna go somewhere for this, you know, and you know, when other, I won't name them VTTs, see what, you know, the vehicle system that, you know, I know Shard are allowing us to create in terms of, you know, integrating our PDF and the stat blocks into their thing. And when they then see what Tably are doing with their maps and, you know, and that kind of stuff, there's going to be a lot of regrets out there, dude. I know it for sure because, you know, again, it just doesn't exist at the moment. And I'm sure like us, you know, many people will find things like Roll20, Foundry, Fantasy Grounds, things like that are a little bit clunky and aren't getting much development anymore these days. You know, they're having kind of UI updates and thematical updates, but it's the same tech we've been using for the last, you know, 5-6 years, you know, of these companies, you know. So we're just excited for something new that's going to innovate and bring kind of the next level to kind of our system as well as also virtual tabletops with Tably for sure.
Yeah, it's all very exciting. I think the vehicle system is super, super neat. It's something that we've needed for a long time. You guys have done a great job with it. I cannot wait to see what comes out of the Kickstarter. I can't wait to see the product. I actually have a little bit of a preview, which none of you have. But I'm sure part of that 30-day portion that you're going to be getting when you kickstart, which you will kickstart this game. And I will talk to you soon, hopefully. And if you need anything from me, please let me know. Thanks for coming on.
Hey, it's been an absolute pleasure. You're an absolute legend, and this has been a really lovely conversation. I enjoyed it.
Thank you for the kind words. Thank you for the kind words. We'll talk soon.
Hell yeah.
Thanks, mate.